All right, testing. All right. Your national contingency plan. Section 105. Revision of publication with 180 days of the enactment of the Act. The President shall know for the opportunity for the public is under the revival of the Republican contingency plan with the removal of oil hazards of the originally prepared and published in Section 311 of the Federal Water Pollutant Control Act with a reflect the effectuate responsibility powers created by the Act with the with the manner of the specified in 311. The C2 of the stuff of the revision shall include the section of the plan to be known if the National Hazard Substance Response Plan, which shall establish the procedures stand with the responding relief of the hazard source of pollutants contamination shall include the minimum of the method of discovery the investigating facility with which the hazard substance have been disposed otherwise come and locate with the method of evaluating involving the analysis relevant to the remedy the relief of the threat for the relief of the facility which is both substantial danger to the public health and environment method of criteria to determine the appropriate the extent of the removal of the remedy of the other measures approved with the authorized by the act and appropriate role of the responsibility of federal, state, and local governments, interstate with the non-governmental entities in affecting the effectuating the plan, provision, identification, procurement, and maintenance of the response, equipment, supply of the method of the assignment of the responsibility for the reporting extra of the facility located with the federal owned control properties and relief of the hazard substances of the facilities. Means of the addition of the metal remedial action method is called effective over the period of the potential exposure for the hazard substance of the contaminated materials. The criteria to determine the priority the moment of relief of the threat and relief of the throughout the United States for the purpose of taking the remedial action, the extent of the practical to take into account of the potential urgency such action for the purpose of taking the remove the action criteria to priority of the underparagraph shall be based on relative the risk of the danger, public health, the welfare, environment, of the judgment of the president, and taking into account of the extent of the possible pollution at risk out of the potential for the hazard substance. For the potential contamination of the drinking water supply, for the potential for the direct human contact, with the potential for the destruction sensitive to internet. Ecosystem for the damage of the natural resource, for the main effect for the human food chain, which is associated with the relief of the threat and relief of the contamination, political contamination, ambient potential contamination, ambient air associated with the relief of the threat and relief of the state, with preparedness, assume the state of the cause of the responsible abilities and other appropriate factors based on the criteria. The subparagraph of the paragraph of the President shall list with the plan with the national priority for the zone with the relief of the threat and relief throughout the United States with the shall revive the list no less than annually, 1 year of the day of the enactment of the action annually thereafter. The state of the self shall they submit the consideration present priorities for remedial action among the relief of the potential of relief of the state based on the criteria for the set forth and subparagraph of the paragraph after summing with the revision and the President shall consider the aim of the priorities established by the state with the extent of the practical the height of the priority facility shall be designated individually and shall be to as top priority among known response targets. The extent of the practical shall include one of the 100 highest priority facilities of the one facility, each of the state with which facility designated the state with the presenting greatest danger, public health, welfare, environment among own facilities in such a state with the state shall be allowed to designate the highest priority facility. Only once the priority facility and indecent shall be lifted in singular group the response priority purposes. Specialized roles of the private organization and even the preparation of the responding relief of the hazard substances include the identification appropriate with the qualification capacity for thereof, including their consideration of minority firms according with subsection F, standard for the testing procedure for the alternative for the initiative of treatment technologies determined with the appropriate utilization response action authorized in the SAC. The plan shall specify the procedure technique with the manual of the equipment and the method deployed with identifying, removing, or remedy releasing of the hazards of the compared with those required in subsection 311 C2, F, G, and J1 of the Federal Water Pollutant Control Act with the following pollutants revised and the National Contingency Plan responsible for the action with the minimum of the damage of the hazard substance release shall be the greatest extent possible in accordance with the provisions present made from time to time revised and republished the National Contingency Plan revision of the plan no more later than 18 months after the enactment of the Superfund Amendment, the Reauthorization Act of 1986. The President shall have the National Contingency Plan to reflect the requirements of such amendment. The portion of the plan of the National Hazard Substance Response Plan shall be revived to provide the procedure the same of the remedial actions undertaken to pursue the act, which are consistent with the amendment made by the Super Amendment Fund Reauthorization Act 1986 relating to site election remedial action hazards ranking system revision no later than 18 months of the enactment of the Super Amendment Fund of the Reauthorization Act 1986 with the authorization the after publication of the notion of operation submission for the comments according with the 553 for the 55.3 with the Title 5 of the United States Code of the President shall be rule and promulgated amendment of the hazard ranking system in effect for the September 1st, 1984. Such amendments shall ensure the maximum extent feasible of the hazard ranking system accurately accept the relative degree of the risk of human health and environmental purposes and by site with the facility subject to the review. The President shall establish the effective date of the name of the hazard ranking system, which no later than 24 months after the enactment the Super Amendment of the Fund Reauthorization Act 1986. Such amendment hazard ranking system shall be applied by any of the site facility newly listed national priority lift effectively date with the established president until the of the day with effect of the regulation. All has the ranking system in effect with September 1st, 1984 shall continue with full force and effect. Human health assessment of the water contamination. Carrying out this subsection with the wares and shall ensure the human health risks associated with the contamination from the potential contamination either directly or with the result of the runoff of the hazardous substance or pollutant contamination from the side of the facility. The surface water with the property assessed with where the surface water is and can be used for recreational portable water consumption. Making the assessment of the required portion of the pursuant to the preceding sentence of the President shall take into account with the potential mitigation of the hazardous substance pollutant and contamination through the surface water of the downstream resource of the drinking water. Reevaluation not required. The President shall not be required to reevaluate after the date of the enactment of the Super Department of the Reauthorization Act of 1986 with the hazard ranking of the facility evaluated in accordance with the criteria section before the effective date of the amendment of the hazard ranking system under the subsection which was assigned the national priority under the national contingency plan. New information. Nothing in the paragraph 3 shall be precluded with the President taking the new information in accordance with the account with undertaking the response action of the section. Petition for the assessment and relief. Any person who has made the effect of the relief of the threat and relief of the hazard of the pollutant of the contamination may petition the President to conduct the preliminary assessment of the hazard of the public health and environment which are associated with the relief and threat and relief of the President not previously conducted the primary assessment with the such relief the President shall within 12 months of the receipt of any of the position with the complete with the such assessment provide with the explanation of why the assessment is not appropriate for the preliminary assessment indicate the relief of the threat and relief of the concern may pose with the threat and human health of the environment. The President shall promptly evaluate the relief of the threat and relief in accordance with the hazard ranking system referred to in paragraph 8 of the subsection determine the national priority with the such relief, threat and release or threat and release. E. The release from the earlier site, which happened whenever there has been after January 1st, 1985, significant relief of the hazardous substance pollutant contamination from a site with the list of the President for the site cleaned up to the date of the national priority list. So the site shall be restored with the national priority list without application of the hazard ranking system. Minority contractors awarding contractors under the Act, but shall be considered available to qualified monitoring forms. But the President shall describe the name of the part of the annual report with the submit with the for the action participation minimum minority firms and contract with the carried out under this act shall report with the contamination brief description contracts which have been awarded to minority firms under this act. The effort shall be made in comparison to incur with the participation of such firm with the programs carried out in this act. Special studies of waste application subsection above the facility which on the date of the enactment Superfund Amendment of the Reauthorization Act 1986 not include with the proposed inclusion in the national priority list in which special study waste described in paragraph 2 3A2, 3A3, and Section 3 of 3001B of the Solid Waste Disposal Act, President significant quantities included in any of the such facility which there has been relief of the special study waste. Consideration adding facility of the national NPL depending on the revision had national priority list depending on the hazard ranking system subsection C. President shall consider that each of the following factors of the facility of the governance section of the national priority list. Extent of the hazard ranking system score for the facility with the ethic of the President with any special solid study of the waste and any release for the such facility. Available information quantity of the toxicity concentration over the hazardous substance of the constitute of the special study of the waste relief of the such facility. Extent of the potential for the relief of the hazard to constitute with the exposure for the potential exposure of the human potential environmental degree of the human health and the environmental pose of the relief of the hazardous consistency of the such facility with the subject further available information actual concentrate of the hazardous substance not only with the total quantity of special studies waste as such facility with a saving provision with nothing in the subsection contribute limited with authority present to remove any of the facility with the date of the enactment Superfund Amendment of the Reauthorization Act of 1986 with include with the national priority list from the such list and not enlist any of the facilities for the date of the proposed inclusion of such list. Alright, information gathering analysis. Nothing in the action will be true with the expenditure for the monitoring of the fund for the gathering analysis of information when enable the President to conduct consider specific factors requiring paragraph 2 of the national priority list. Deferral. Deferral of state voluntary claimants have the request to save the subject of the paragraph 2 and 3 with the President generally shall they have the deferral final listing of the eligible response side of the national priority list. The President determines that the save of another party with under the agreement order with the save of the conducting response act and eligible response site and complying with the state program that specifically governs the response action protection of the public health environment will provide with long-term protection of the human health of the environment and the state of the activity pursuant with the agreement of the form of the response action described in paragraph A with the side of the response with the side that has been relieved to believe the conducting of the response action that meets the requirements of paragraph A. Alright, your progress toward cleanup. After the last day of the first year period beginning with the day of the President of the proceed with the last response side of the national priority list of the President determine the statement and the other priorities that not making the responsible progress determined toward completing a response action eligible response side of the President may be the eligible response side of the national priority list cleaning up agreement with respect to the eligible response side within paragraph 1B with the last day of the first year of the period begin with the date of the President. Proof of the eligible response side of the national priority list of the agreement that described in paragraph 1B of has not been reviewed. The President made it for the listing of the eligible response side of the national priority list for the additional period of not exceeding 180 days of the President determined the deferring listed with which appropriate based on Complexity with the side of the substantial progress of the negotiation. Other appropriate factor determined by the president. Exemption of the president may decline the deferral. They elect with the discontinue the deferral with the listing with the eligible response of the national priority. Determines a deferral would not appropriately be kept with the state with the owner and operator with significant contributed with the hazard, waste, and substance to the potential for the response part of the criteria under the national contingency plan with the issuance of the health authority advisory has been met, and the condition of the paragraph 1 through 3 as applicable no longer being met. All right, your abatement action.